Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Learning Minds podcast, the official podcast of Khyber Medical College, Peshawar. I, Wajahat Hanif, am honored to take the helm of today's episode. In this episode, we have the privilege of engaging in a conversation with one of the most esteemed figures in the field of surgery and medical education. So, with great respect and admiration, we welcome Professor Dr. Mahmud Aurangzeb. Professor Dr. Mahmud Aurangzeb has held numerous leadership positions, including serving as the head of Department of Surgery at KMC and KTH. In 2018, he was appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of PGMI Peshawar, and since June 2020, he has been leading Khyber Medical College as its dean, fostering an environment of academic excellence, innovation, and research. Sir, every great journey begins with an inspiration. May I ask what or who inspired you to pursue a career in surgery?
Right. Interesting question. I would like to confess that there was no eureka moment in my career. Just to tell you my background, I come from a family whose members had mostly indulged in public service. So there was no doctor in the family to guide me. But when I was young, I was interested in aero modeling. I would build aircraft from scratch, paint and label them. So I decided to pursue a career in which I could do something with my hands. Then at school, I realized that my inclination was more towards biological sciences than it was towards chemistry or physics or the humanities. So gradually I decided that and started flirting with the idea of pursuing a career in medicine. So it basically started from there. I was not influenced as such by my parents because they put full faith and trust in me that we are confident that whatever career you pursue, you will do it to the best of your abilities. So for me to name an individual or a particular person as a mentor or as an inspiration, that did not exist. And I wish it did because there were so many things I could have done fast track.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you introduced laparoscopic surgery in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, revolutionizing surgical practice in the region. Such an innovation must have come with formidable challenges. What were the key obstacles you faced in implementing laparoscopic procedures?
Well, I sort of am that generation of surgeon in which we saw the evolution of laparoscopic surgery. And towards the end of my training in the United Kingdom, I was introduced to laparoscopic surgery in a tangible, meaningful manner, in that my boss went to one course and sent me off to another course, and then he actually performed his first laparoscopic operation with me assisting him. So the foundation was strong. When I came back to Pakistan, I realized that things were still very, very basic here. The intention was always there to introduce laparoscopic surgery, but this was treated with great apprehension, intimidation, and unacceptability, not by the public as such, but by the prevailing surgeons at the time. So I assembled a laparoscopy stack. As you know that you need a laparoscopy tower. And it was all a mix and match, because the flip side was that we don't have the manufacturing industry in Pakistan. So everything had to be imported. And at that point, the startup costs were very high. So I had to buy second-hand equipment. So the insufflator was one company, the light source was another company, the monitor was a different company, the telescope was a different company. But somehow I ran a dry run, and it worked. So it was a need of the hour at the time, because at that point, say for instance, if we take the example of laparoscopic cholecystectomy, was established as the gold standard, as a the best therapeutic modality for symptomatic gallstones. So in secrecy, actually, I performed the first 100 cases under wraps, closely guarded. And when I saw that the results were absolutely astounding, the recovery was so fast and the patient acceptability was so good, that I then announced it to all my colleagues, and I suppose everywhere in Peshawar, that I have done the first 100 cases with a very high success rate and satisfaction. The challenges were that the equipment that you use in it, they're very delicate instruments. So replacing them was a problem, and at that time I could only rely on imported equipment because our surgical industry in Sialkot had not caught on at that time. So it was very early. It was around 2002 when I started laparoscopic surgery. But I'm proud to say, I must add here, that today it sort of spread like a forest fire. It dissipated everywhere, and today you go to any district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and you have experienced laparoscopic surgeon. So what I did do is to break and shatter the myth that it's some kind of rocket science. It wasn't at all.
Sir, having practiced surgery in both the UK and Pakistan, what key differences have you observed in surgical procedures, healthcare systems, and patient care between the two countries?
Well, the difference is very stark, I have to tell you that. And to begin with, I considered myself an above average student. But when I started working in the United Kingdom, their systems are totally different to ours. For instance, I'll start with something very basic. It was a rule to refer to the patient by his or her name and not treat them as a patient or a sick person, but as a human being. So to start with, that was something that I found very difficult, because everyone was not John, Smith, George or Robert. Some of them had these difficult East European names, but we had to learn it. There was no other way. The other thing is that their society is very well informed and a very mature society. So the expectations are very, very high. They know what their rights are. So obtaining a history from a patient abroad used to be very easy. They used to be very precise. They would describe their problem very nicely. Then the hospitals were extremely well equipped. So if you were doing an outpatient session, a nurse would be there to assist you. Every time a new patient would be coming in, she'd fix the couch, she'd put disposable paper on it, disposable gloves for me. So all the equipment was available to us. All the investigations that we needed to do, which a lot of our students just find in textbooks, were actually available to you. The other factor is that surgical disease presentation is very high, at a very early stage. So say we talk about cancer as being stage 1, 2, 3 and 4. Whereas there we were dealing with 1 and 2, here we are mostly dealing with 3 and 4. So conditions are much more challenging in Pakistan, but as the society gets better informed through public healthcare bulletins and awareness, we are slowly and gradually catching up with them, but we have a long journey to go. Then I must tell you that the actual process and procedure and the technique of surgery, they really demonstrated as an art to you. So starting with the skin incision, every step is meticulously followed. They're not slow, but steady and careful. Their respect for tissue, and their respect for different surgical planes. And there were so many new things that I learned there, which I was able to replicate upon my return to my home country.
Thank you, sir. Sir, if you could go back in time and meet yourself as a novice medical student, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
I don't think I would be able to shrink it into one piece of advice. I certainly would be much better informed as how to plan my career path, the trajectory that I need to take. And that is why, having felt that, many years later, something that was lacking. That is why I've introduced mentorship programs here. You know that we have different interest groups in surgery, medicine, psychiatry, gynecology, etc. so that students can decide on their career paths much earlier and the options available to them. The other thing I found is that, should I go just stay in my home country and do my training here? That's one option. Should I go to the United? We mostly go to English-speaking countries. Now, a lot of our students are going to Australia and to New Zealand, also Canada and the USA. I try to engage people that are experts and well established in their fields in the United States. The ultimate destination, I feel, is the United States. The level of medical practice in the United States is the superior most in the world. Of course, you have different disciplines and different specialties where different countries excel in, but I'm talking about overall. And then, of course, the incentives are so high. The pays are fantastic. I engaged doctors from there, and now we have an advisory committee that will aid and assist and facilitate students in how to match into good programs. But of course, having said that, it must not be done at the cost of your academic calendar here. I found that a lot of students were found absent from their classes, and the lame excuse was that they were preparing it for the USMLEs, and this was absolutely pathetic because you cannot do one thing at the cost of another. It's just a question of time management. So I would love to give you just a simple motto or one sentence of what dawned on me so many years later as a medical student, but there are multiple aspects that I felt I lacked because of ignorance, not being properly informed, that I had to learn the hard way.
Thank you, sir. Sir, surgery is often described as both a science and an art, not only requiring technical expertise but also intuition and decision making under pressure. Have you ever encountered a moment in the operating room where instincts played a greater role than the textbook?
Again, Vajat, I would not be able to give you one moment. It happens day in and day out. What happens is that you are, for instance, say the six of us, we are batch fellows, we qualify from the same medical school, and then we go into the same surgical residency or training program, and then we all graduate with the same degrees. You will find that one of us will be more gifted than the others. So there's always an innate, inborn talent, I feel, that it's a gene or it's in your DNA. I don't know whether research has substantiated or proven that or not. And then, of course, how you are molded, shaped, tutored into being a good surgeon. There are multiple moments in which we have to make a decision in a split second. And surgeons are better equipped with this ability than other professions because your decision is going to, the outcomes are going to matter. You're talking about life and death. But I can tell you one thing, that I haven't encountered many situations in which the decision I've taken has convinced me that it doesn't matter what you do for this patient, you're going to lose this patient. And that patient survives. And then that is where a third element comes in. It's not your intuition alone, it's not your surgical dexterity alone, it's not your surgical technique alone, but it's something from uphill.
Indeed. Sir, the field of surgery, do you believe it's related to specific personality types?
No, I don't think so. Because if you were to study the personality of, say, all the surgeons that teach you and you work with at Khyber Teaching Hospital or Khyber Medical College, we all have different varying personalities. Some are aggressive, some are well-built, some are scrawny and lean, some have a very I have a fuse button that goes off very easily. Some are extremely cool, calculated, cool as a cucumber, as they say. So there's no specific personality type which is best suited for surgery. That's a myth.
Sir, what quality do you believe distinguishes an exceptional surgeon?
I think, I have an interest in surgical history. I have a special interest in the evolution of surgery. And it is so insightful when people have the time and you read about it, of how different procedures evolved in the field of surgery. These were extremely committed people, and they first of all saw what the prevailing circumstances were. Now, for instance, I'll quote you an example. A common problem is inguinal hernia, all right? Now, in inguinal hernia, it seems very simple, but the surgical technique involved is highly complex. Now, surgeons are good at removing things, but surgeons are not very good at fixing things, repairing things, all right? So when we look at the evolution of inguinal hernia surgery, there was a gentleman by the name of Vicini, an Italian surgeon, and he realized that pre-Vicini, the recurrence rate of inguinal hernia surgery was in the range of 60 to 70%. And there was a certain mortality associated with it also. And a lot of introspection he did and tried to refine his surgical technique by not operating on humans, not experimenting on humans, but his own research lab. And ultimately his procedure revolutionized inguinal hernia surgery, in that the recurrence rate dropped down to 10%. So you've got to have an inquisitive mind, a critical mind. You've got to analyze, and you've got to be constantly prepared for innovations and change. You've got to catch up with what is going on in the rest of the world. Simply to say that the facility does not exist or whatever, discarding it into the bin, that is not the correct attitude to have. And I think it's most important in this career to be highly ambitious. Not ambitious regarding the wealth or the money that you make, but ambitious in that you have to be updated all the time.
Sir, you have had a lot of leadership positions in different medical institutions all across KP. How these positions have changed your perspective on medical education?
I think yes, I would agree with you here. I've gained a fair amount of experience being an educator. In that, I took up an academic position when I returned back to Pakistan and gradually went up the ladder. As you mentioned, heading the department for a substantial period, and then being involved in postgraduate medical education, then as dean. I prioritized the fact that, number one, I found a great deficiency in the qualifications and the approach of our medical faculty. So they say charity begins at home. So my first job as the Dean of Khyber Medical College was to improve the academic qualifications of our faculty. This is called faculty development. Now, you must realize that medical education per se has become a subject in its own right. So I try to encourage that at least we should be certified and hold a 6-month certificate program in medical education. Now, I, for instance, felt that because of the command that I have over English, the fact that I have had experience working in the West, I can deliver a very good lecture, but I was wrong. That course proved me wrong. In that, it's a science. There are certain areas that you need to address while delivering even a 15-minute talk. Once you meet those criteria, that is when you realize that you have met the standards for giving a good lecture. So faculty development was one aspect. We are now doing very well because in the recent times, we have developed, particularly our weak area was the basic sciences. And now we have plenty of PhDs and FCPS to impart and dissipate training in the particular subject. As far as the hospital is concerned, I found that it was rather an undergraduate level hospital. You couldn't call it as such a tertiary healthcare center. So after I took over, I've introduced lots of specialties. It will be pointless in the interest of time. I won't name them all, but 16 specialties have been added on. So we now are in a world where the buzzword is super specialization. I belong to that older generation of surgeons where Mahmud or Aurangzeb can do head and neck surgery. I have experience in thoracic work also, abdominal surgery, treating basic vascular cases also. That era is dying. And the domain of the general surgeon is now extremely limited because we have upper GI surgeons, we have hepatopancreatic biliary surgeons, we have colonic and rectal surgical specialists, breast specialty. If you are operating on endocrine glands, you become a surgical endocrinologist. And we are recently going to also introduce surgical oncology. And you will, if you work with a general surgeon and you work with one of these specialists, you will see the real art of surgery coming out.
With the AI and robotics entering the medical field, where do you see the future of surgeons and surgical practice in the light of these technological innovations?
All right, now, like I said, that if you don't catch up with the rest of the world, you're going to be left far behind. We have no choice but to enter the race. Now, laparoscopic surgery really was the first step. But in adjunct with laparoscopic surgery, previously a surgeon would operate, he would divide vessels, he would clamp them, he would tie them. There used to be a certain degree of blood loss. It used to be time consuming. Then you would leave a foreign body inside the patient, whichever material you used to suture or to apply a tie. Now we have, biomedical engineering has advanced to the point where we have handheld devices that will coagulate and cut for you, thus cutting down on time, the trauma to the patient, and like I said, cutting down on trauma and time and early recovery. Now AI is playing an increasing role, but I just want to say one or two things about AI. In that, recently I heard President Biden's address to the UN, and he spoke about AI for 10 minutes. For 1 minute, he talked about the positives of AI, but for 9 minutes, he talked about the negativity. Now, AI in the hands of irresponsible people can be an absolute disaster. Just as we see social media, the way people abuse it day in and day out and feel that they are unaccountable for it. An example is robotic surgery. It was a step further from laparoscopic surgery. Now, robotic surgery can actually mimic the hand movements of a surgeon. So it cuts down on the error that a surgeon may be liable to. We are humans after all. The exposure that you see in robotic surgery using high definition cameras is unbelievable. The areas that you get into were impenetrable before. So, but it all comes at a cost. They're highly expensive equipments to start with. So if we do acquire a robot, there cannot be a free lunch because the instruments have to be serviced, they have to be replaced, so it comes with a cost. But at the same time, I would like to caution surgeons that there have been certain anecdotal reports coming out of the West that surgeons have become so adept and so used to automation that they're losing the basic essence of surgery. And the same analogy can be given in the field of aviation, where, as you know, that Boeing and Airbus companies are coming up with the most sophisticated aircraft, where the surgeon is just sitting idle. So this generation of pilots is being referred to as children of the magenta line because they constantly and 100% rely on instrumentation and what the computer is telling them. And there have been serious disastrous consequences of that. So that is what we don't want in the field of surgery. Now, what further innovations come up in the field of AI as far as medicine is concerned? Well, they're all working full-time in the West. In the developed countries, we are waiting for the results, and I am impatiently waiting for what comes out. That is what we have to do. That is what we have to learn. Like I said, we have to keep abreast with what is going on around the world.
Thank you, sir. So, under your leadership as Dean, Khyber Medical College has seen remarkable growth in research, academic innovation, and the development of student-led societies. Many students and alumni appreciate the strong support and academic freedom they have had in this college. As someone who strongly advocates for scientific progress and medical advancements, what message would you like to share with the students about the importance of research and innovation in their medical careers?
Fine. Now, my first interview in the United Kingdom, my first job, straight out of medical school, the only experience I had was to have passed my Part 1 FRCS, and then I had cleared the lab test also. So when they were looking at my CV, they glanced at the column of research, and that was unfortunately blank, and they said that you haven't done any research at all. And you know, I nearly fell back that, do they expect research at this early stage in my career? Yes, they do. Then it became a problem for me later when I qualified the fellowship of the Royal College of Surgeons from 3 different colleges by exam, not in an honorary manner. You have my diplomas over there to see. This became a further liability. When I would apply for jobs, they'd say, all right, doctor, you have done 3 fellowships, fantastic. What about your research? So everywhere I went, I would be taken off guard, and my Achilles heel and my greatest weakness was lack of research. I could turn a blind eye and tell everyone that forget about research, do it when needed. No, it's an essential, integral requirement of a budding doctor. It doesn't matter what field you are in, whether in clinical medicine or non-clinical medicine. Research is of paramount importance. So I give it a lot of credence. I have encouraged students. We've had research conferences, 3 of them held at Khyber Medical College, all very, very successful, with great input from the young students, not of your institute alone, but both provincial and at a national level. And I'm hoping even at an international level. We also launched off the Journal of Medical Students Research, which was the first of its kind. So yes, this is something very, very passionate to and very close to my heart, that what will distinguish you as a better doctor or a researcher or better suitable for a particular post is the amount of research that comes out. Now, there are a lot of myths concerning research. Every research does not mean that you go into a lab with mice and dogs and cats to work on. You can do research on demographics. There's so many aspects. There's so many, in my field of surgery, aspects of surgery that do not exist in the West. For instance, I do a lot of head and neck surgery. The largest goiter that we operated on of my 6 years in England was not more than 50 grams. Here, I operate on goiters that are 500 grams. Like I said, the disease burden is such. Then we have this condition called hydatid cyst, which is non-existent in the West. So we have to come out with the best surgical solution and innovations in that field. Sadly, typhoid fever, enteric fever, today also consumes innocent young lives because it's not existent in the West. So we have to come up with the best surgical modalities. But how much research have we done in that field? So studies have shown that those students that indulge in research at undergraduate level at your level, I've found to become researchers later in life. They fare much better than that doctor who uses a menu card that, well, I will have the soup, the entree, the main meal as to my liking. No, make research the salt of your food. It has to be made absolutely essential. And believe me, you'll remember Mahmud Aurangzeb at some stage that thank God it's my research that has given me this position.
Thank you, sir.
I cannot stress the importance more than that.
Thank you, sir. It was really an honor speaking with you, sir.